Is Prime Minister Netanyahu deliberately provoking Tehran in a way that could push Iran to reject or sabotage President Trump's nuclear deal, even if that means raising the risk of a wider regional confrontation? Could a single drone strike or one miscalculated attack really become the spark that destroys Trump's Iran pact, triggering a chain reaction that ends diplomatic efforts and plunges the region into crisis? Now that Iran says it shot down an Israeli drone, did the Israel Defense Forces inadvertently hand Iran's hardliners the political and military excuse they needed to scuttle negotiations and escalate retaliation? Is President Trump's largest foreign policy gamble suddenly threatened by a relatively small but consequential incident involving a drone, one that could unravel months of diplomacy and force a high-stakes decision? Iran says it shot down what it describes as an Israeli spy drone over Hormozgan province, claiming the aircraft was intercepted and forced down in waters near the Strait of Hormuz. State outlet Mehr News reported that Iranian naval forces moved quickly to recover debris from the wreckage, saying crews salvaged pieces of the downed drone and secured the site. Iranian officials and state media identified the downed aircraft as an Israeli-made orbiter surveillance unmanned aerial vehicle, asserting the model matches equipment used in past reconnaissance missions. Tehran says the shattered remains of the drone were discovered following the alleged intercept, with photographs and descriptions released to support its claim of a successful takedown. The Israel Defense Forces, for its part, tersely responded that it is not familiar with the reported incident, denying any immediate knowledge or confirmation of an Israeli operation in that area. The timing of the episode is notable because it occurs while expectations of an Iran-U.S. peace deal are rising, a development that could complicate or accelerate diplomatic calculations on both sides. Multiple reports now suggest that a memorandum of understanding between Iran and the United States may be announced in the near future, raising stakes for any hostile incidents that could derail the process. Notably, the draft U.S.-Iran pact reportedly includes provisions that bar attacks by either side and by their respective allies, intended to reduce the risk of escalation while talks continue. The draft agreement reportedly states that Iran would refrain from launching preemptive strikes so long as U.S. allies likewise abstain from offensive actions, creating a reciprocal restraint designed to preserve fragile calm. Axios reported that the new memorandum of understanding could, if finalized, contain elements that would effectively bring a formal close to the long-running conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, altering regional dynamics. According to reports, any pact would still preserve Israel's right to strike Hezbollah if the group launches fresh attacks, including rockets or drones, maintaining a conditional allowance for defensive or retaliatory action. Donald Trump made a major claim about ongoing Iran negotiations while gunfire erupted outside the White House on May 23, according to official statements and social media posts. The U.S. president announced on Truth Social that a U.S.-Iran agreement had been largely negotiated, pending final details and formalization. He also stated that he held a very good call with regional leaders and a separate discussion with the Israeli Prime Minister during the same period. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "I am in the Oval Office at the White House where we just had a very good call with the leaders of countries across the region, and all things related to a memorandum of understanding pertaining to peace. An agreement has been largely negotiated, subject to finalization between the U.S., Islamic Republic of Iran, and the various other countries, as listed. Final aspects and details of the deal are currently being discussed, and will be announced shortly. In addition to many other elements of the agreement, the Strait of Hormuz will be opened." Unquote. Trump's statement did not include any direct reference to Iran's nuclear program or its uranium stockpile. Shortly after, Iranian state-linked media outlet Fars News Agency pushed back against the claims, saying the status of the Strait of Hormuz remained under Iranian control. Fars described the U.S. president's account of the negotiations as incomplete and inconsistent with the situation on the ground. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said Tehran and Washington were moving closer to a 14-point memorandum of understanding. Ismail Baghai said, and I quote, "We are now in the finalization stage of this memorandum of understanding. The topics being discussed at this stage focus broadly on ending the war, halting the U.S. naval aggression, what they themselves have labeled a naval blockade, and issues related to the release of Iran's blocked assets. Our approach has been to first draft a memorandum of understanding consisting of 14 articles. That memorandum would include the most important issues necessary to end the imposed war and matters of fundamental importance to us. Subsequently, within a reasonable timeframe of 30 to 60 days, the two sides would discuss the details of these issues and ultimately reach a final agreement." Unquote. Baghai said issues related to Iran's nuclear program were not currently part of the discussions. He also stated that the Strait of Hormuz was not under U.S. jurisdiction and should be managed by regional stakeholders such as Iran and Oman. Ismail Baghai said Iran and Oman should jointly determine the future management mechanism of the Strait of Hormuz, stressing that both countries are coastal states responsible for ensuring safe transit. At the same time, reporting from the New York Times suggested that Tehran had agreed to a broader framework involving a halt to fighting and possible reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The report also claimed that discussions included the potential release of frozen Iranian assets worth billions of dollars, alongside wider regional de-escalation measures. Additional reporting from the Times indicated that Arab and Muslim majority leaders were encouraging acceptance of the proposed framework. At the same time, Axios reported that the United States and Iran are close to finalizing a proposed 60-day ceasefire agreement. The report said the proposed Memorandum of Understanding would extend the current ceasefire arrangement for another 60 days while broader negotiations continue.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.